I thought I knew her. Thought I knew the curve of her smile, the rhythm of her lies. But the truth? It hit me like a freight train at full speed, no warning, no brakes, just pain. It started with red lace. I came home late one night, nothing unusual. Work was hell, deadlines even worse. I dropped my keys in the bowl, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed on the couch. The apartment smelled faintly of her perfume, sweet, expensive, the kind she said she couldn't afford until I surprised her on her birthday. She was asleep in the bedroom. Or pretending to be. I didn't know which was worse. I went to grab a fresh t-shirt from the laundry basket when I saw it tangled between my boxers and her yoga pants. A red lace thong. Not just red. Scarlet. Seductive. Tiny. And definitely not hers. I knew what she owned. I paid for most of it. Hell, we'd been together for 3 years, lived together for almost 2. She was a cotton briefs kind of girl. Practical. Simple. She used to say lingerie was a scam only for girls trying to impress men with deep pockets. So what the hell was this? I stood there, that piece of lace burning in my hand like a match. The silence in the room screamed louder than any fight we'd ever had. I should have confronted her. Shouted. Demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I tucked it back where I found it. Pretended I never saw it. Pretended everything was still okay. Because a part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was another explanation. There wasn't. The lies unraveled fast after that. She started going out more. Girls' night, she'd say. Or, just clearing my head, babe, don't wait up. I waited anyway. Watched the clock tick past midnight. Watched her come home in Ubers with smudged lipstick and a scent that didn't belong to me. Still, I stayed silent. Maybe because I was afraid of the truth. Or maybe because deep down I already knew it. She was slipping away. And someone else was pulling her in. I started noticing the small things first. Her phone, once carelessly tossed on the counter, now never left her side. She kept it on silent, screen always facing down, face recognition disabled, suddenly locked behind a passcode I didn't know. Whenever it buzzed, she'd glance at me, then turn her back like she was shielding a secret. Her smile had changed too. It was less open, more calculated, like she was performing a version of herself she thought I wanted to see. The intimacy began to fade. At first, it was subtle. She was tired, she said. Work was stressful, she claimed. Then it became a routine, the avoidance, the deflection, the way she'd flinch if I tried to touch her when she wasn't expecting it. Her kisses became brief, mechanical. No warmth. No passion. Just obligation, like she was checking a box on a list she didn't want to write in the first place. One night, I made dinner, her favorite, mushroom risotto with garlic shrimp. I lit candles, poured wine, tried to recreate the magic of when things felt real between us. She walked in, took one look and smiled, that same rehearsed, distant smile, then said she already ate with coworkers. I stared at the untouched plates as she disappeared into the bedroom, mumbling something about being tired. The wine tasted bitter after that. The food stayed cold. I started keeping track, not because I didn't trust her, but because I couldn't trust myself anymore. I needed proof, something solid to hold onto, something that would validate the growing dread in my gut. I checked our shared credit card statements, our Uber receipts. Patterns began to emerge. Rides from parts of town she never mentioned. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to. One name kept popping up, Jay's. I'd never heard of a Jay. She never mentioned any colleague or friend with that name. The next time she said she was meeting the girls, I followed her. I felt sick doing it. Like I was betraying her, betraying us. But some truths need to be dragged into the light, no matter how much they burn. She didn't go to any bar or friend's house. She met him in a black Mercedes parked behind a luxury hotel downtown. I watched from across the street as she kissed him, not like a friend, not like a coworker, but like someone who already knew the taste of his mouth, the weight of his hands. They laughed. She touched his chest. He brushed her hair behind her ear. I stood there for almost 10 minutes before I could move. I don't remember driving home. All I remember is the way my hands trembled on the steering wheel and the ache in my chest that no amount of air could fix. The red lace made sense now. So did the perfume. And the distance. She wasn't just slipping away. She had already left. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her slipping under the covers beside me like nothing had happened. Her breathing was calm, even. Mine wasn't. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself, crushed by the weight of everything I now knew but couldn't say. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her awake and demand an explanation, not even for the cheating, but for the months of pretending, the months she looked me in the eye and fed me lies like they were love. But I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just swallowed the rage and let it settle into my bones. Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home. I stopped asking questions. Stopped touching her. Stopped trying. I think she noticed, but she didn't say anything. Maybe that was the worst part, not the betrayal, but the silence. The way we both pretended this thing between us wasn't rotting from the inside out. We sat on the same couch, ate at the same table, shared the same bed, but we were miles apart, two strangers bound by muscle memory and fading routines. Then came the second blow. I was in her laptop looking for a recipe I'd sent her months ago. She had left it open, careless for the first time in weeks. Curiosity, or maybe masochism, got the best of me. I opened her email. At first, just the inbox. Harmless. Boring. But then I saw a folder named Finance. I clicked it. There were bank statements. Not ours. Her own account. I didn't even know she had one. The deposits were regular. Large. Thousands at a time. Not from a job, she still worked the same schedule, complained about the same paycheck. No, these weren't salaries. They were transfers. From someone named J. Colin. J. I felt my stomach turn. He wasn't just sleeping with her. He was paying her. That was the moment something inside me snapped. This wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was a transaction. A deal. She had sold something sacred, not just her body, but the life we were building. The home we shared, the trust I'd given her without question. All of it turned into collateral in some luxury-fueled arrangement with a man whose money was worth more to her than my loyalty. I closed the laptop, sat on the edge of the couch, and for the first time in my adult life, I cried like a child. Not out of weakness, but because I realized the woman I loved was gone. And the one who wore her face now? She was just a stranger with a price tag. I began to see everything through a different lens after that night. The world around me didn't change, the same streets, the same job, the same apartment with its worn-out couch and cracked kitchen tiles, but I had changed. It was as if the betrayal had peeled away a layer of skin, left me raw and exposed to every truth I had been too blind or too trusting to see. Every touch she gave me now felt rehearsed. Every "I love you" rang hollow. She didn't love me, not really. Maybe she never did. Maybe I had only loved the idea of her, the version I had built in my head, sculpted from memories and hope. She kept up the act, I'll give her that. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still texted me little updates during the day, meeting went late, grabbing coffee, see you soon, babe. She was trying to maintain the illusion, probably to buy time until she figured out how to leave without losing face. Or maybe Jay hadn't offered her a full escape yet. Maybe she was waiting for a bigger check, a better deal. I couldn't know for sure, and the not knowing was its own kind of torture. I became obsessed with the details. I started keeping notes. Dates. Times. Her outfits. Her mood swings. I checked the bank folder on her laptop again, screenshot the statements, sent them to a secret folder I hid inside my work cloud. It felt dirty, not just what she was doing, but what I had become. Suspicious. Paranoid. But what else was I supposed to do? This wasn't a petty fling. This was deception woven into the fabric of my daily life. One evening, while she was in the shower, I found a new gift box in her closet. It was small, expensive-looking, wrapped in deep navy paper with a silver ribbon. My name wasn't on it. Inside, I found a gold bracelet, delicate, feminine, nothing like the simple jewelry she used to wear when we met. It came with a card. Not a love note. Just initials, J.C. J. Colin. She had brought another man's gift into our home. Hid it between her clothes. I didn't take it. I didn't confront her. I just put it back exactly where I found it, shut the closet door, and walked into the bathroom like nothing had changed. She smiled at me from the steam. I smiled back. A mask for a mask. We were both playing roles now, husband and wife, in a play neither of us wanted to star in anymore. But I wasn't going to let her write the ending. Not alone. I started planning my exit, not out of spite, but for survival. Staying with her, under the same roof, in the same bed, next to the same lies, was slowly killing something inside me. Not just my love for her, but my self-respect. My sense of worth. I knew I couldn't unsee what I had seen or unlearn what I now knew, and yet I kept pretending for just a little longer. Not because I had hope. Hope had died the night I saw her in that Mercedes. No, I waited because I wanted the truth, the full, naked, undeniable truth, to hit her square in the face. I wanted her to see the man she had dismantled and realize, for once, the cost of her deception. So I set the trap. I took a day off work, told her I was heading out of town for a company retreat. She barely looked up from her phone. Have fun, she said with a half-smile, her fingers dancing across the screen. Probably texting him. Maybe even planning to see him that night. I kissed her on the forehead, like always, and walked out the door, but I didn't go far. I circled back an hour later, parked 2 blocks away, and waited. My heart was pounding, my palms sweating against the leather steering wheel, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had to see it with my own eyes one last time. She left our apartment around 7, dressed in the same tight black dress she once wore on our anniversary. I followed her, headlights off, crawling behind like a shadow. She wasn't careful anymore. She didn't need to be. I had already given her the illusion of freedom, the green light to keep cheating, and she had taken it, no questions asked. She met him at a downtown condo this time, not the hotel. He opened the door, kissed her, pulled her inside without a second glance. I waited until the lights dimmed and my stomach had turned to concrete. Then I left. I didn't cry this time. I didn't rage. I just felt numb. Something in me had closed, a door, a chapter, maybe even a lifetime. When I got home, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop and began printing everything, the bank statements, the messages I'd managed to screenshot when she forgot to lock her phone, the receipts, even a few stills from the dashcam I'd hidden in my car that night. I placed it all in a plain envelope and left it on the kitchen table with a note that read, "You lied. You sold us. Keep the bracelet. I'll keep my dignity." I didn't wait for her to return. I packed a bag, grabbed my passport, and walked out the door. She wasn't worth the goodbye. Not anymore. The first night away was the hardest. I checked into a cheap roadside motel 2 hours out of town, not because I couldn't afford better, but because I didn't want to be anywhere that reminded me of her, of us. The motel was stale, the walls thin, the bed uncomfortable, but for the first time in months, I breathed freely. Still, sleep didn't come easy. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the buzz of a flickering neon sign bleeding through the curtains, replaying everything in my mind like a looped film I couldn't turn off. Her laughter, once sweet, now sounded like mockery. Her touch, once comforting, now felt like poison. Every memory had become a weapon, and I was bleeding from 1,000 invisible cuts. In the morning, I turned off my phone. I knew there would be calls, texts, maybe even a few tears, but none of it mattered anymore. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was only sorry she got caught. And that difference meant everything. Apologies after betrayal aren't acts of love, they're acts of damage control. I wasn't interested in fixing what she had so deliberately destroyed. My only focus now was rebuilding what was left of myself. The following days were quiet. I wandered through small towns, ate alone in diners, stayed in forgettable motels with generic art on the walls. But in the silence, I found clarity. I stopped thinking of her as my girl and started seeing her for what she truly was, someone who had made a choice, again and again, to put her desires above our bond. I wasn't blameless, maybe. I had worked too much, missed some signs, assumed love was enough. But I never lied. I never cheated. I never turned our life into a transaction. One night, somewhere near the coast, I sat by the ocean with a bottle of cheap whiskey and let the wind scream what I couldn't. I thought of all the things I wanted to say to her, all the words that never made it past my throat. But in that moment, I realized she didn't deserve them. Closure is a gift you give yourself, not something you beg from the person who hurt you. And so I let go. Of her. Of the pain. Of the version of me who thought love alone could keep someone loyal. I was broken, yes. But not beyond repair. The pieces were still mine. And I would rebuild, this time stronger. Weeks passed before I heard from her directly. I had expected a storm, furious calls, bitter texts, maybe even some desperate plea for forgiveness, but instead there was just silence. And then a single email. The subject line was blank. The message was only a few lines, but each one was soaked in the kind of desperation that only comes when someone realizes the game is over and they've lost everything that mattered. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she wrote. "I got lost in something that wasn't real. I was scared. Of life. Of not having enough. Of always waiting. I know sorry doesn't fix it. But I had to say it. No signature. No explanation for Jay. No request for me to come back. Just that thin, hollow apology floating in my inbox like a balloon too deflated to lift. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because I was done giving her space in my mind, in my soul. Forgiveness wasn't hers to request, it was mine to claim when I was ready, and I wasn't there yet. Maybe one day I would be. Maybe I'd look back and see the cracks for what they were, signs that things had been breaking long before the cheating, long before the secret bank accounts and the late-night rides to Jay's. But at that moment, all I could see was how easily she had replaced me with a price tag and a promise of luxury. That wasn't fear. That was choice. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just 2 rooms, a balcony that overlooked a row of quiet maples, and enough space for silence not to feel suffocating. I brought only what I needed, my books, my clothes, my old guitar. I left everything else behind. Even the furniture. Even the bed we once shared. I didn't want ghosts living with me. And slowly life began to return. Not all at once. Not with joy, but with peace. I'd wake up to the smell of my own coffee, not her perfume. I'd walk through my door knowing there were no secrets hiding behind it. I spent my evenings cooking meals just for me, savoring each bite without needing to impress anyone. I began journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. I wrote not just about her, but about me, the version of myself I had buried to keep our relationship afloat. And it hit me one night, scribbling in that notebook with a glass of wine and the sound of rain on my balcony. I didn't miss her. I missed who I thought she was. There's a difference. And I was finally learning it. It's strange how time doesn't heal you in the way people promise. It doesn't erase pain like waves washing away footprints in the sand. It doesn't give you closure wrapped in a tidy bow. What it does, if you let it, is give you space. Space to breathe, to remember without flinching, to stop picking at the scabs and let the wounds scar over. Some days were still hard. I'd see something on TV that reminded me of her, a song, a restaurant ad, the name of a street, and for a brief moment, the air would thin and that familiar ache would return. But it didn't destroy me anymore. It just passed through me like a cold wind, reminding me of where I'd been and how far I'd come. One evening, I ran into an old friend from college. Sarah. We hadn't spoken in years, but there she was at the bookstore reaching for the same worn copy of East of Eden. We laughed at the coincidence, caught up over coffee, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about betrayal or pain or what I had lost. I was present. With her. In that moment, we talked for hours about books, life, old dreams we'd buried under adult responsibilities. She asked me what I'd been through and I hesitated for a second, then told her. Not all of it, not the ugly details, but enough. She didn't pity me. She just listened. And that small kindness did more for me than months of solitude. I didn't fall in love with her that night. That's not what the story is. But something opened inside me, a window I had long boarded up. Not for her, but for the idea that maybe I wasn't broken beyond repair. Maybe, just maybe, I could still connect. Still feel something real. Not built on lies or money or lust, but on presence. Authenticity. The kind of honesty that doesn't need grand gestures, just two people showing up as they are. Back at home, I found myself thinking about what love really is. It's not the fireworks or the Instagram-worthy vacations or the diamond bracelets hidden in closets. It's not even the promises whispered in the dark. It's what happens after the storm. It's who stays when things aren't perfect. Who doesn't flinch when life gets hard. It's the quiet loyalty of someone who doesn't need to be dazzled, they just want to be chosen again and again. She couldn't do that. But that didn't mean no one ever would. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that I hadn't lost everything. I had simply lost what wasn't real. Months passed, and with each one, the shadows of what had happened began to recede further into the background. Not because I forgot, you don't forget something like that, but because I stopped letting it define me. I got a promotion at work. Nothing dramatic, just enough to remind me that I was capable, respected, and whole outside of any relationship. I started going to the gym again, not to impress anyone, but to reclaim the body I had neglected while trying to hold together a life that was crumbling behind my back. Slowly, I began filling the empty spaces in my apartment, not with furniture or decoration, but with pieces of myself I had long abandoned. A guitar in the corner. A map with pins of places I wanted to see. A calendar filled with plans that didn't include anyone else. And then, one evening, out of nowhere, she called. It was late past 10, and the screen lit up with her name like a ghost trying to claw its way back into the present. I stared at it for a long moment, not because I was tempted to answer, but because a part of me was genuinely curious. What did she want now? What more was there to say? The call went to voicemail. A few minutes later, a message came in. I'm sorry. Just wanted to say that. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I think about you. That's all. I read it twice. Then I deleted it. Not in anger. Not out of pain. But because I no longer needed to carry her voice around with me. Her regret was hers to bear, not mine to hold. There's something powerful about letting go, truly letting go. Not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with quiet, unshakable peace. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her to suffer or grovel or beg. The truth was, she had already lost more than she realized. She gave up someone who loved her completely for someone who saw her as an accessory, a passing thrill. And maybe she didn't understand the value of what she destroyed at the time. But eventually, people like her do. The silence that follows is louder than any apology. Now, when I think of her, I don't feel fire in my chest. I feel stillness. Because I survived. Because I grew. Because she left me shattered and I built something better from the broken pieces. Looking back now, I don't feel like the man who once begged for crumbs of honesty from the woman he loved. That version of me, the one who questioned his own worth, who stared at red lace like it held the answer to everything, he's gone. Not erased, but transformed. Every betrayal, every sleepless night, every time I doubted myself because of someone else's deception, it all became the raw material for something stronger. Not colder, not harder, but wiser. More grounded. More awake. Pain, as brutal as it is, has a strange way of becoming a sculptor. It chisels away what's false, what's weak, what no longer serves you until what remains is raw, real, and unshakably honest. I don't talk about her anymore. Not with friends. Not with family. If they ask, I simply say we ended things. It's not a lie. It's just enough. Because the story isn't really about her anymore. It's about what I became after her. The nights I spent alone weren't empty, they were clarifying. They stripped away every illusion I had about love, about security, about what it means to share a life with someone. And in that space, I found something no relationship had ever given me, self-respect. I still believe in love. That part of me didn't die. But now I know that love without truth is just decoration. Love without loyalty is performance. You can share a bed, a bank account, 100 inside jokes, but if you're not seen, if you're not chosen fully and freely every day, then what you have isn't love. It's compromise wearing a pretty mask. Someday I might love again. I might sit across from someone new, share stories, exchange glances that speak louder than words. But it'll be different this time. I won't chase validation. I won't ignore my gut. I won't mistake silence for peace or luxury for devotion. And if I sense even a flicker of deceit, I'll walk away. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because I know what it costs to stay when trust is dead. So here I am, not healed maybe, but healing. Not whole in the way I once was, but whole in a deeper way. I lost her. But I found myself. And in the end, that was the better trade.